Kuala Lumpur, the capital city of Malaysia, and I have to say, one of my favorite big cities in the world. I think it's so underrated in terms of what type of life you could be living on a fairly moderate budget. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's like a very affordable or cheap place or anything like that. Like, it's definitely no Bali, it's no Chiang Mai, but the type of value that you can get. Today I want to break it down all for you. So from accommodation, apartments, hotels, to going out, restaurants, transportation, SIM cards, the whole story. So, I have spent in the city a good month. And if you happen to be new here on the channel by any chance, this is what I talk about here, about building a life of freedom around the world. And a big part of it is obviously also financial. And I believe it always can make a lot of sense if you build a certain location freedom to go to places that are not necessarily just affordable, but that just offer more. And within this video, I think you'll really understand what I'm talking about when it comes to Kuala Lumpur. And if we're already on the topic of money, let me tell you about today's video sponsor, Paysend. So when it comes to sending money worldwide, be it to a friend or paying for something when you're on the road, with Paysend, you can send money to over 170 different countries. The fees are very transparent, and another thing is the money just arrives so much faster than with traditional banking. So depending where you send it to, it might arrive right away within a couple of minutes. So it's very easy. The way to go about it is you get on the App Store, you can get the Paysend app. It takes a couple of minutes to set it all up, and you can all of a sudden send money all over the world at the lowest fees. And in terms of security, it's verified by Visa and MasterCard, so your money will always stay safe. And while their general rates are already very affordable, as of right now, with my code DANNYFREE, you can get 3 transactions completely for free and with a better exchange rate. Just choose the country, the currency where you want to send money. You choose your own currency. Are you sending with euro, with dollar, whatever it may be. You choose where you want to send it from, so your bank account or whatever it may be the situation for you, and all within the app. You can get it done within a couple of minutes. So as I mentioned before, with my code DANNYFREE, 3 transactions for free and with a better exchange rate. But everybody who's on the road a lot, this question always comes up, and Paysend is truly one of the easiest solutions for these type of situations. I'll make sure to leave everything on top of the description. And on that note, let's hop into Kuala Lumpur. Obviously, the biggest expense, as always, is having a roof over your head. And I have to tell you, in Kuala Lumpur, it have been quite some roofs. Like, the type of value that you can be getting, this was probably one of the reasons why I enjoyed the city the most. I'm thinking about places like, for example, the star residences. On a short-term rental, obviously a bit more expensive, but it's kind of like a 5-star hotel. You look at the pool, you look at the gym, you look at the lobby if you walk into that building. Like, if you have watched the Malaysia travel series, I've published a couple of full apartment tours just because of how blown away I've been by some of these places. So here I've been paying around $50 on average in the star residences. The thing is, if you book short term, obviously it will be a bit more expensive. The type of apartment I was staying there actually I think goes for around $70-80 usually. I've made a deal to make it a bit less. And I have to tell you, just because of the comfort and also the experience that you can get, I really thought it was worth it. Usually I spend a little bit less than that, but here I thought it was really something. I've also moved around actually quite a bit. I've stayed, I think, at 3 apartments in the city. The other one was a bit more affordable. It was the Chalon's Residences. I stayed there for 2 weeks. And the building was a bit busy, like a lot of people there. But again, there's a gym, there is a pool, the rooftop, the architecture. I'm telling you, it's absolutely amazing. They're truly putting in a lot of work, and the buildings are very creative also. So a lot of newly built condo buildings, and with that also all the amenities are in very nice condition. And so in total, I would say this month I spent a bit more than I usually spent on a rent, a little bit over $1,000 you could say. But the value that I've been getting, honestly, I would say was more like a $3,000 to $4,000 apartment in similar big cities. Like in Bangkok, you probably would have to pay at least 2 to get a similar type of apartment, like for example the star residences, from what I've experienced in my time in again, Southeast Asian cities, still fairly affordable. And like, if I think about what type of money you would have to pay to, like, whatever, be it in the States or be it in Central Europe, this is where Kuala Lumpur is truly shining. So if you're curious about the different apartments that I've actually ended up staying in the city, you're welcome to check out the full videos on the Kuala Lumpur series. Just check out the channel recently from these videos. Another thing is obviously getting around the city. The taxi prices, I was a bit baffled by them, because you can get all around the city for around pretty much $2 to $3. Like, you order the taxi, it's like 10 ringgit to go for like 15 to 20 minutes from one end to another, end up paying $2-3, drive for 20 minutes. It's unheard of. But then I realized that overall gasoline prices in Malaysia are fairly low, or actually really low, and so I think that maybe explains it perhaps. But again, the convenience, you can just order, most of the time they use Grab. I think Uber is also available, but I've been always using Grab. So that was pretty much the only transportation I used. I tried to, they also have a lot of MRTs and pretty much public transport. The buses look super cool. I actually really like them, never ended up trying them. So you can probably even go even more affordably. And if you look at the city, how futuristic it is, and the infrastructure is also fairly well. I'm not saying the whole city is absolutely perfect, but to continue a little bit on, let's say, something like a day-to-day expense, grocery shopping, I have to say, like in the city center, in many of the grocery stores, when it comes to things like fresh fruit and meat, they are actually priced a bit more. I don't know if there's more import products or whatever is driving up the price. This is where I had to pay a little bit more. So I would say, just to come back to the taxes, I probably spent on the whole month maybe like $60 on transportation. This is what I have tracked in my finance app. When it came to grocery shopping, I ended up to be around $150 for the full month. You know, there's this thing is called the Big Mac Index, which pretty much indexes, kind of has a list of the Big Mac prices all over the world. And there you see that, unsurprisingly, Malaysia is somewhat on the bottom, now actually very much on the bottom, with their Big Mac price, which basically just shows how much you can get for your money relatively to the rest of the world. So at the very top there's like whatever, maybe Switzerland and things like that, and Malaysia, one of the most affordable countries according to the Big Mac Index. So the Big Mac is like $2 or something pretty much. But one thing I do have to tell you, when it comes to rooftop bars, this is probably where they do like to make a good bit of their money. So going once to a rooftop bar, I think it was the Banyan Tree, cocktails go for around $10, beers go for around $5. Also, some people ask like, oh, you know, like Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, how is it in terms of the nightlife? I can assure you there's definitely a lot of opportunities. Also, alcohol is being sold at pretty much all hotels, bars, freely being sold everywhere pretty much. And not crazy prices, but definitely I would say on free time activities, I personally don't go out too much, but probably have spent around $200, checked out the rooftop bar, movie theaters, and another thing that I kind of like realized in Kuala Lumpur is it's quite a melting pot. There's people from all over the world. Also, a lot of people come to work there. And with that, it creates also a lot of opportunities to get by, let's say, enjoying a lot of local cuisines while paying very, very little money if you would want to do that. So I remember this one time stumbling into this shisha bar. I like to have myself maybe a shisha like once a month if I'm in a place that where it's kind of like part of the culture a little bit. And I don't know if it was like an Arab restaurant, but it was, I would say, mostly Arabic food and really good food, nice shisha. End up paying like $10-15 because it's a local place, which is still fairly central, but not like straight up on the dot in the city center. You walk out a little bit. Another time I remember right next to the Petronas Towers, walked off a little bit, kind of like realized a bit hungry. You see this food court, you see this Indian food court, and you see it's probably, again, mostly I would guess Indian people eating there, and then you pay for it and it's like $2-3. It's almost like Kuala Lumpur is really one of those cities where I really like that you are not bound to one type of experience. You don't have to be like, let's say, mid-range or upper range. There's the full range. And while the city center outside maybe of the rooftop bars is for the most part fairly reasonably priced in terms of the value, if you walk out a little bit out of the city center, you go a little bit more into the old town areas, to the Chinatown areas. There's a lot of food courts, a lot of street food. If you go to the famous streets, I have to tell you, the prices are gonna be a bit higher, kind of like double or sometimes triple of when you go into a little bit more of the local streets where the local people are eating. When talking about restaurants, I would say there's two categories: the good value and the extremely good value. I'm sure there's also, I have no doubt about it, some prices that are, let's say, priced a bit more proudly, but I've checked out a few couple of good hotels actually. So the Shangri-La, the Traders Hotel, and what surprised me is that their prices are very reasonable. So you can get a nice meal, maybe some pasta, maybe a pizza for $10 to $15, which again, in Central Europe, that's like the price for a very average restaurant. In Kuala Lumpur, that's the price for a 5-star hotel meal. Again, if you're gonna go for something like steak, it's gonna be obviously a good bit more, but personally I had a couple of meals at Shangri-La and stayed also at the Traders Hotel, which also the hotels themselves, to talk about that, a little bit luxury experiences in the city. So Shangri-La Hotel is like an old bit, let's say, legendary hotel that has been around for a while. Still absolutely amazing experience, really nice view on the city, and I think their standard rooms, which are fairly large and have a nice view, started around $120. Traders Hotel, the suite goes for around $160 to get this absolutely insane view of the Petronas Towers. Of course, again, the prices are seasonal, but if you're thinking that this is the type of price for these chains in any other city for the most basic room, or you might be looking at just a random street, or like in good case scenario for this price. Let's say recently I've been also traveling through Europe, and the videos are coming soon, and the type of rooms you have been getting there for $100 just, you know, it makes you want to go back, makes you want to go back to these places. So Traders Hotel, the view was absolutely mind-blowing. That's kind of what I would say. Kuala Lumpur is one of those places where luxury is actually somewhat affordable, and I have to tell you, it is really worth to visit Kuala Lumpur if you want to have some futuristic experience, have a nice view of the Petronas Towers. Even though the Petronas Towers have been around for like 30 years, they keep building. They're right now actually finishing up the second tallest tower in the world, the Merdeka in Kuala Lumpur, and just the skyline. It's definitely one of my favorite skylines of all time. And yeah, to continue, what else is there to mention? Like in terms of SIM cards, I think I paid around $25 for an unlimited plan. Very reasonable. There were also much more affordable ones, and overall I think roughly my expenses have been kind of like an average recently, a little bit over like $1,300, $400 in total, just for like the, let's say, living expenses of accommodation, food, going out every once in a while. And again, I never like to splurge too much. I always like to live much below my means, and I like to go to places where you can get more for that. So this is what I mean. It's not like a Chiang Mai or a Bali place, which I like to use example as like places where you can really affordably live a nice life in nature, but you're in a big city. You're surrounded by like global, let's say, brands that are present there, and I believe that Kuala Lumpur is still one of those little hidden secrets. If you just generally talk to people, they might have heard of it. Everybody recognizes the Petronas Towers, but also when you walk around the city, you see a couple of expats, but you truly feel like it's a bit undiscovered. It also doesn't have this like touristy anxiousness that everybody, like the streets are just full of tourists there. While there's a good amount, definitely, it seems like a bit of a hidden secret. So perhaps with this video I have put it maybe slightly a little bit more on the map, but I feel like it's truly worth it. And I think especially if you are into the big city vibe, which whenever I go to, let's say, a place like right now I'm filming from Thailand, or spend a little bit of time in Bali, in one of my different places that I like to come back to, I always like to soak up a little bit the energy of the big city. I like to also use it as a place to just work a lot, and to have a condo, to have a place where everything is in one spot, I think is a very good recipe, let's say, for a productive time. Price, so I totally can see myself coming back to Kuala Lumpur. And just to share a bit more of the time, for 2 weeks left to go to the island of Langkawi and Penang, and both of the places have been very accessible by flying. So I think the flight to Langkawi was like $20, and then trains or buses, same thing. So the country is very well connected. But just in terms of how Kuala Lumpur as a city is connected to other places, also very convenient. So again, I would say it's very important to highlight that you cannot get away in Kuala Lumpur in like $500 or something like that. That I would say is close to impossible. There's no like options that are very affordable. I don't know how it looks like in terms of like budget travel, backpacking, whatever it may be. But if you have like, let's say, a moderate budget to spend, what you're gonna get is just so much more. And that is generally what I like to talk about here on the channel. And so yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's little breakdown of my experience in Kuala Lumpur. as you have probably got the message by now, it has been one of the best values that I have experienced in terms of big cities in Southeast Asia. Probably in Bangkok to have a similar experience, I would probably have to add around $1,000 in terms of, especially probably for the condo buildings. That would have to be the case. With everything else is probably somewhat similar. Rooftop bars in Bangkok probably even, again, a little bit more, just because Bangkok much more established, much more famous in terms of what I mean established in terms of tourism, which drives up the price. And yeah, in many ways I hope that will happen for Kuala Lumpur as well, in terms of, let's say, just more tourist money for the country, and especially I think it's really worth visiting. On the other hand, obviously for myself, selfishly, I wish it will stay somewhat underrated like that. And if you're new here by any chance, you're very welcome to check out the back catalog of the past years of living around the world. If this idea is something you're into, you're also very welcome to join me on Instagram to stay up to date, to see where I am right now. But on another note, Kuala Lumpur, I definitely will be back. The next video series is starting soon. It will be from a different continent. It will be from, yeah, a couple of European countries. We're talking Croatia, a little bit of Italy, maybe a bit of Switzerland. A couple of videos coming, I'm quite excited about that. And so on that note, you too, got a role to see.